crisis, conflict, and friction. Beware of setting expectations. Relationships may be challenged, leading them to evolve or decay. Are you ready for change? This transit field can really push you to do it, and the continuation of heightened emotionality. These are all pressures, qualities, and questions that this cycle of the Human Design Weather for March 12th to 18th, 2026 bring. Hello, and welcome to the Human Design Weather or Not podcast with me, Margot Fraser. Still have a bit of this cold going on, but yeah, thank goodness for video editing to edit out my coughs and so on. All right, this cycle begins March 12th at 11:04 p.m., going until March 18th at 2:32 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. Universal time coordinates, it's starting March 13th at 5:04 a.m., going until the 18th at 8:32 p.m. So remember to convert that to your own time zone so you know when it starts and ends for you. Well, we start with the Sun-Earth activations as that's 70% of the conditioning field. The Sun has moved into gate 36, the gate of crisis, also called the darkening of the light. This is part of the collective abstract experiential circuitry, which brings a theme of making sense of our experiences and then impersonally sharing them and the wisdom from them. There's no opportunity to make sense of an experience and of human existence itself if you don't go through cycles of experiences. The motor of the emotional center directed at the throat means that this is a trait of action. It brings the pressure for change and to enter into a new experience, to really do it. It's emotional. So in the wave of hope to pain, there can be this movement from, okay, I'm ready, I can do it, and be very enthusiastic about starting something new, to, oh, I don't think I'm ready yet. I don't know if I can really do it, and dreading it. Its keynote says, the rule of cycles in which decline is natural, but not an enduring stage. We're talking cycles here, beginnings, middles, and ends. No part is meant to be enduring, to go forever. If you don't have experience, that's going to be a limitation you bump up against, right? So for example, it's one of the very first questions you're often asked if you interview for a new job. Tell us about your experience. The limitation of not having the experience is the decline. It's natural. We all have things we don't have experience in. But if it's something that's correct for you to get an experience in, you can. The limitation can be dissolved. So again, it's not enduring. It doesn't last forever. This trait is rooted in having that determination to face the limitations of not having the experience and persevering in moving through them. In the polarity, there could also be a general resistance to change. Resistance to getting an experience is fine if it's not really for you according to your own strategy and authority, but just having a general resistance so that you're holding back from entering into something that is correct for you, well, that's just going to bring its own kind of crisis. There can be an awareness here that getting experience can also change relationships. For example, if you were on the ground floor, entry-level position of a job, and you've got camaraderie with others in your position, but with experience, maybe you get promoted to manager, well, that's going to shift the relationships, right? And that can bring, again, another level of crisis, another cycle of needing to go from inexperience to experience in the new role. We all make mistakes when we're in the learning process, so there can be a sense of inadequacy that you might feel with this activation present as well. It does carry this fear of inadequacy. So we've got this strong pressure to enter into an experience. If it's correct for you, it's really going to support you to go through it and learn from it. If it's not correct for you, according to your strategy and authority, it could end up being very frustrating and you could end up feeling stuck. There are two rules of thumb for the experiential circuitry. The first is no expectation. When it's correct, you just need to surrender to it. The other rule of thumb is one experience at a time. You won't get the depth of wisdom if you're dividing your energy between multiple experiences. The Earth has moved into gate 6, the trait of conflict and friction in the solar plexus emotional center as well. So 2 emotional gates here. It's tribal in this case, so carries that theme of mutual support. It's part of the channel of mating and intimacy, which at a primal level is about making more of us for survival of the species. It's going to bring a focus on intimacy. At a personal level, this is your one-on-one relationships. It points towards gate 59, the trait of sexuality in the sacral center, which is the trait that wants to break down the barriers to intimacy. Gate 6, which we have here, is the one putting up the barriers, seeing if the other, whether a sexual partner or a friend or a business partnership, can deal with all the ups and downs of emotions. Is this really someone I want to partner with? The fact that it's emotional really inherently means take your time. As moving through those ups and downs of the wave, well, it can create conflict, which isn't necessarily a bad thing. The keynote says the fundamental design component of progress, the law that growth cannot exist without friction. So if we look at it literally in terms of mating, well, sex doesn't work if there isn't friction. If we look at it figuratively, growth in a relationship or creative growth can't occur without friction. We aren't clones of one another. We're going to rub up against things in each other that can create friction that we have to work through. But moving through that conflict, that friction can allow growth and evolution. And, well, the polarity can be there too. You may find that in trying to work through the conflict and friction, the relationship devolves and decays. For the 50% of you that have the solar plexus undefined in your chart, that triangle in the lower right is going to be white. The big not self theme for you is avoiding conflict and confrontation. Now remember that the undefined emotional center takes in and amplifies the emotionality that's there, and it's going to be there in a big way in this cycle. So you may find that you're either even more so avoiding conflict and confrontation, or it could have you being very aggressive in confronting something. So just be aware of that. This is a trait that either opens or closes to intimacy. Who are you going to let into your world or not? So there's an association with your boundaries, and biologically it's associated with your pH. You may notice communication through touch with friends and loved ones is heightened. This side of the tribal circuitry often communicates through touch. This frequency could bring the opportunity to work through conflicts and to open to intimacy for establishing a deeper personal or business relationship. There's a creative fertility that this trait can bring. And there's an opportunity to be very emotionally stable through conflict. The polarity can be there as well, though, as emotional instability through conflicts. So beware of making emotional decisions. When we look at these two traits together, friction and conflict in relationships may push you into new territory, a new experience to work through. Whether relationships evolve or decay, it's going to bring a new experience of life. Now, the emotional center is also where we can bring blaming and shaming, especially where you're not set expectations that weren't met. The shadow mind, the not self mind, will often look for who or what to blame or shame. And if that's expressed, it's likely to bring a negative type of conflict and confrontation. Remember that these traits are in the emotional center, so it does take patience to get clarity. All right, let's look at our channels now. A reminder that when the transit field creates a channel, everyone that doesn't already have it in their chart is receiving activation of the related traits and qualities. So it has a big impact that way. We have our long-term channel we've been talking about for a while now, since December 22nd, and it's going to be with us until May 13th, with the north and south nodes of the moon creating the channel of community, a design of a part seeking a whole. The nodes represent our direction, our environment, and what we see in the world. The north node sitting in gate 37, the trait of friendship and family. And the south node is in gate 40, the trait of deliverance and aloneness in the ego center, the heart center. This is tribal with that theme of mutual support, like our gate 6, our Earth's position. So generally, it's going to bring a heightened need for giving support and feeling supported. And we're going to see those who are supported and those who are not. It's also the channel of the marriage contract and agreements generally. So it is going to bring in an emphasis on fairness in relationships. It can be a really great time to renegotiate agreements if they're not fair. So something that could be very useful, well, this is present. But there are a lot of themes built into this particular channel of tribalness, of loyalty and betrayal, jealousy and friendship, possessiveness and generosity, fair agreements and agreements that are unfair, which in that case will give a sense of feeling taken advantage of. This is the design of a part seeking a whole. So it brings pressure to find where you belong. And it could also heighten feelings of not belonging. But there is this opportunity with it present to really sense into yourself and know that no matter what, you are a unique part of the totality and you do belong. This is also about the exchange of resources and having enough resources. So in the collective, trade agreements are more pronounced while this is present. All right, we've got 2 more channels. I'm going to go through them chronologically in this case. So the first is one created by a transit of the moon. So it's just a little taster because the moon only activates a gate or a trait for about 10 or 11 hours, give or take. It's coming in on March 16th at 7:15 a.m., going until 5:30 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in the 16th at 1:15 p.m., going until 11:30 p.m. We have the moon activating gate 30, the trait of recognition of feelings in the solar plexus, emotional center, connecting with its electromagnetic gate 41, the trait of contraction and decrease in the root center, being activated by Pluto. Together, they create the channel of recognition, a design of focused energy. This is another part of the abstract experiential circuitry in the same stream as our sun's position, gate 36. So it's going to give an extra boost of energy to that 36. It's going to really bring the fuel to it to say, hey, yes, go into the experience. Within this channel, though, it is that drive and pressure to enter into the new experience, starting with fantasizing about what it is you want to experience, what feeling you want to have, narrowing that down to the one that is the most of value for you, and then really having that desire, yearning in the gate 30. Trying not to have any expectations about when and how it will be fulfilled. Out of that yearning, there can be this rushing to try and get the experience, but it's a place where you really have to be patient and allow that clarity to come. Follow your own strategy and authority to know when it is time to enter into a new experience. And remember, this is the transit field. There may be nothing for you to do around entering into a new experience in your own design and following your own strategy and authority. We've also got a short-term channel that's coming in right close to the end of this cycle. So it's going to come in on March 18th at 9:06 a.m. and move into the next cycle, staying with us until the 22nd at 10:10 p.m. Mountain Daylight Time. UTC coming in on the 18th at 3:06 p.m., going until the 23rd at 4:10 a.m. We have Venus moving into gate 51, the trait of shock in the ego center, the heart center, that motor that generates that willpower. And it's connecting with gate 25, the trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence and universal love being activated by Neptune in the G center. And that's the center that's associated with love, identity, and direction in life. Together, they create the channel of initiation, a design of needing to be first. This is an individual channel that can bring a pulse of knowing of what leap into the unknown to take to stretch yourself, initiating you into a new sense of self. It supports you in coming more deeply into yourself and really being centered in that. It can be very empowering and support you in accepting yourself as you are. There's also the opportunity that it brings to adapt to shocks that come in. Now, what we most often see in the not self world, though, is being competitive with others out of that ego in this design of needing to be first. All right. That brings us to our long-term transits. The long-term transits are created by the outer planets and the nodes of the moon. They're with us for longer periods of time, years in some cases. So your not self mind could start to think they're part of you, even when it's not something you have in your own design. Then when the transit moves on, that can be rather confusing to the mind. Now, this cycle will see both Jupiter and Saturn changing gates. But we're going to start with the nodes in the transit field. That sets our context, our environment, and it brings the homogenized perspective and direction that we'll see in the world. So the nodes, well, we've already talked about. They're in the 3740, creating the channel of community, that design of a part seeking a whole. Specifically, they're in line 4 and having a very long run in this particular line. For gate 37, the trait of friendship, line 4 is called leadership by example. It really, in the exaltation, says that those that exhibit exemplary behavior and the highest principles will be seen as leaders over the traditional patriarchal leaders. In the detriment, only the typical patriarchal leaders are accepted, even if they're not good role models. Gate 40 brings an ego that will organize to balance work and rest. That's something that at a personal level can really support you. At the collective level, we're more likely to see the detriment play out of people spreading themselves too thin and this workaholic type tendencies, which in the end result in being less productive. All right, let's go to our outer planets now. Jupiter starts this cycle in gate 39, the individual trait of the provocateur in the root center with its drive to provoke. Now, Jupiter went direct in the last cycle on March 11th, and will start its move forward through the gates it had retrograded through now. So ideally, this trait is provoking the emotional spirit of the other. What's your passion? But it can also just be a button pusher. It's sitting in line 6 called the troubleshooter. It has a developmental theme that says a natural gift for solving problems. In the exaltation, it says practicality and the ability to guide and nurture others, the energy to provoke others by attempting to solve their problems, right? Gets them to think about it, gets them to put some attention on it and work through it. In the detriment, it says ego dominance that generally abuses this gift for self-aggrandizement and personal ambition rather than for the benefit of others. The emotional drive to dominate that provokes others. Those are pretty self-explanatory. On March 15th, Jupiter is going to move into gate 53. We saw it there not too long ago. This is the trait of beginnings and development in the root center with its pressure to start a new experience. It will move into line 1 called accumulation. This is going to bring the pressure to start something new, not from scratch, but based on the foundation of the old. This is that introspective first line that wants a secure foundation. However, I'm not sure this exaltation is even present in the world. We may only have the detriment because Neptune hasn't activated this trait since 1909. So only if there's someone alive in the world at this time that was born in that time will the exaltation still be present in the world. In the detriment, there's this holding back from starting something new due to the criticism that was experienced in the past. So here we see the insecurity of the first line dominating. And Jupiter is going to expand this pressure to start something new or to hold back. Saturn and Neptune are both in gate 25, the individual trait of the spirit of the self, of innocence, and universal love. Neptune's in line 4 called survival. It has a developmental theme that says the nature of true innocence can be maintained regardless of circumstances. The exaltation says the beauty of the rose in the garbage dump, the highest principles even amongst the greatest decadence. The spiritual warrior, the innocence maintained regardless of circumstances. No polarity, no planet in detriment. Very helpful to have. However, Neptune does have this veiling quality that can make it a little harder to grasp this trait. Saturn starts the cycle in line 6 called ignorance. It has a developmental theme that says false innocence betrayed by actions. Now, 6 lines go through a 3rd line trial and error process. So as children with this trait, you can find out that even when your action came from innocence, you can still get punished. So you tend to learn to withdraw, which is not terrible for a 6th line, which has this quality of being an observer. In its detriment, it says constant, inappropriate, and destabilizing actions whose very counterproductiveness strips away the facade of innocence. Constant, inappropriate action in times of challenges that can break the spirit. So with this line 6 activation, both polarities playing out here. And it does bring a quality, though, of being able to observe others and see if their actions are out of innocence or if there's some motive behind it. It's just not so easy to see if your own actions come from innocence and just out of the nature of your being. So it will often lead to withdrawal from others, which again is not necessarily a bad thing for this 6th line. Now, Saturn could bring a very disciplined quality of not taking action if you cannot see that it's mutative and of value to others. Right at the end of this cycle, on March 18th at 8:08 a.m. Mountain Daylight Time, Saturn's going to move into gate 17, the logical trait of opinions in the Ajna Center. This is a trait that collects patterns to determine which is best, and I'll talk more about that in the next cycle and go into the details. We have Uranus sitting in gate 8, the individual trait of contribution and holding together, with its voice of I know I can contribute or not. It remains in line 4 called respect. And this is where individuals can bring their unique contributions out to the community in a way that can be influential and allow you to be seen as a leader, even though technically you might not be the leader. We can also see individual contributions that are actually not out of true creativity, but instead out of the ego need to impress. And Uranus can be sidetracking, so out of that, it could take people off track. Pluto sitting in gate 41, that collective abstract trait of contraction and decrease in the root center. We saw that in one of our channels. It's that fuel and pressure to start a new experience at the very beginning by fantasizing about all the experiences that you'd like to have, and then narrowing that down to the one you really want to have. It's in line 4 called correction. That also has a developmental theme saying successful adaptation to limitation. The limitation is that it's just a fuel here. The feeling doesn't become a potential that could be fulfilled until it gets to the other side of the channel in that gate 30. And line 4 has a built-in knowing of that there's something on the other side, the potential's there, and it's be very fixed. 4th lines are generally very fixed, and it wants to get there. It can be very fixed in wanting to get there. The exaltation here says survival of the fittest and its eventual flourishing, the energy for adaptation and a deep feeling for survival. So this is really that I will stick with this and adapt to find the way through and eventually get that feeling, that experience. In the detriment, it says the expenditure of energy on maintaining relationships rather than on correction. This is a collective trait, and this really plays on that collective nature where you invite others into the experience that want to have something similar, but then give up on doing it your way to do it their way. And that can really result in frustration in the end. All right, let's just look at this overall now. So the real focus this cycle is on that emotional center, as we have our channel of community defining it, which means our Sun Earth activations are going to also impact everyone in the world. Everyone's going to have access to those. So lots of emotionality here. We have Mars sitting in gate 37, the trait of friendship and family, until the evening of the 16th Mountain Daylight Time, and Mercury retrograding back into the 37 early on the 13th. So those are also going to have their influence in the channel of community. Now, Mars tends to be immature and hasty. It's going to bring that to the community, and those themes that we talked about for the channel, the loyalty, betrayal, possessiveness, generosity, making, breaking agreements. Well, yeah, Mars may be a little aggressive, a little hasty around those. And Mercury is going to bring the pressure to communicate about these themes. Last cycle, we had the potential for getting those ahas and realizations from what we make sense of or not, and the attentive listening or rudeness of not listening. From those, we now move to crisis, conflict, and friction in relationships within the context of communities, right? Could be at a local group for you or in your own family. And at a more collective level, it can be between regions, between nations, working through to evolve together or descending into decay. So personally, you may see more emphasis on relationships and trying to work things through, whatever that brings. If there's existing friction that's been sitting there, whether in a personal or business relationship, these frequencies could be very helpful in persevering and working through them and into, again, whatever it brings. Especially if you can keep the shaming and the blaming and the expectations out of it and be honest in what you really want, so that you can set up that fair give and take, allowing both sides to feel supported. In the collective, well, we'll see what polarities of conflict and crisis play out. We do tend to see in the collective more towards the detriments. And gate 36 crisis actually only has the detriments in the world when it's in lines 3, 4, and 5. For gate 6 conflict, I'm going to read you the line titles because they're going to give you a sense of what we may see as the Earth clicks through these lines, and they're easier to grasp than some of the titles that we have for some of our gates. Just remember the or not polarity is there for each. So line 1 is called retreat, or not. Line 2 is the guerrilla, as in war. Its detriment says the kamikaze, striking but moot. Line 3, allegiance, or not. Line 4, triumph, or not. Line 5, arbitration. And line 6, the peacemaker. So I think most attention in the collective is on the war in Iran. We could see an escalation in the conflict with the possibility of off-ramps if leaders can get their egos out of the way. I'm also watching the reaction of other countries as we may see working through past irritations to strengthen their alliances. Remember that the transit field brings the traits that have the potential to homogenize us to their conditioning. And so it's what we see play out in the world where most people are not self rather than living their unique designs. With awareness that you have, you can observe and learn from these frequencies rather than having them run you. That brings us to the end of the cosmic weather for this cycle. If you want to run your own chart, you can go to jovianarchive.com. If you're new to human design and you want to understand the basics of the body graph at a high level, what's the black and the red about, the different geometric shapes and so on, you're welcome to grab my free Human Design Basics mini course. It's at margotgfraser.com/human-design. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'm always very grateful if you can give it a like and consider subscribing if it's correct for you. Okay, so continue to keep those surfboards out to ride these emotional waves. We have strong pressure to move through a new experience and to make change in your life. So really important to be attuned to your own strategy and authority. For example, if you have a lot of logic circuitry in your design, it's about experimenting, repeating over and over to perfect and develop mastery. If you weren't aware, this is the kind of pressure that can have you jump out of that experimental process and into something new. That's okay if your strategy and authority say, yes, that's what you should be doing, but otherwise it's going to completely take you off track. All right, be open to the potential for addressing conflicts in relationships. That's something that could be very helpful in this cycle. So have a great one. Be kind to one another, and may you know, live, and love the magic of your true nature. Until next time, bye for now.